Good morning. I'm here to meet the vinyl community. I'm reading out the second part of the chapter of Nick's book called The Operator. Pardon me, but your knife is in my neck. See, where did I leave off yesterday? In speaking with several of Tate's friends, it was hard for me to get a sense of her as a person. Her beauty and sex appeal was more frequently mentioned than any personality trait, save for her genetic sweetness and niceness. Two rather perfunctory biographies of the actress by Greg King and Ed Sanders trace the chronological of Tate's life. Neither decode the cipher of the inner being inhabiting her alluring outer form. Perhaps her unknowable quality explains why so many still project a mythic aura on this tragedy's doomed heroine. Manson noted several times that the murders Belosi hyped as the crime of the century would never have been so infamous without Tate's unfortunate and unexpected presence at Cielo Drive that night. The vagaries of fate that led Sharon Tate to spend her last moment in this world with her fellow Texan Charles Watson began in London when she accepted a dinner invitation from Victor Lownes, Lownes. The Playboy served as her guide to London's swinging scene while she was in England, appearing in Eye of the Devil. It was at a supper held at Lowen's orgy den across the Harrods department store that Polanski was urged to producer Martin Rameshoff to cast Lowen's dinner guest Tate in Dance of the Vampires instead of his current girlfriend, Jill St. John. Polanski was not enthusiastic. Still, he met Tate again for an awkward, nearly silent dinner date at a London restaurant. He told journalist John Bowers in a Saturday Evening Post profile on her entitled Sexy Little Me that on a second dinner date, he was painfully silent once more. Real weirdo, she thought. What's he waiting on? She found out shortly. Walking in London's Eaton Square, he suddenly put a bear hug on her and they fell to the ground, Polanski on the bottom. Sharon clouted him and stormed off. That's the craziest nut I ever saw, she said. I'll never work for him. But Polanski apologized, wrote Bowers, and they each saw each other again. One night he took her to his apartment, which had even less furniture than is now and no electricity. He lit a candle and excused himself, flying upstairs to don a Frankenstein mask. He crept up behind her, raised his arms, and whinnied like a madman. Sharon turned and emitted a terrible scream. It took over an hour for her hysterical weeping to subside. Not long afterward, Polanski informed Rameshoff that Sharon would be fine for the vampire killers. The terrible screams were just getting started. We've already described how early in their relationship the budding couple shared a psychedelic voyage with acid Polanski purchased from Ian Quarrier, another of Lowen's companions. Grotowski explained that sparks really began to fly between the two on the set of Dance of the Vampires in Italy, with Quarrier again in attendance. When not making his rabbits and the harem of bunnies employed by Lowen's at the Playboy Club, the hip Hellfire Club Polanski and Grotowski formed caroused at Brian Morris's ad-lib nightery on Leicester Square for a season of undisputed headquarters of the swinging London scene. Polanski's success in Hollywood encouraged the London contingent to ride on his coattails to warmer climes. Brian Morris, Grotowski recalled, also moved to L.A. to set up what he hoped would be an equally star-studded West Coast version of the nightclub called Bumbles. Morris was particularly close to Sharon Tate, said Grotowski, and was devastated by her death. The morning after Tex Watson brought the International Playboy party to an abrupt end, Victor Lownes arranged for an emergency visa to expedite Roman Polanski's urgent return from L.A. to L.A. from London. In a widely publicized photo from the time, Lownes is seen escorting a heavily sedated and distraught Polanski to the L.A.-bound plane Lownes booked. Grotowski accompanied Beatty and the director on this tense voyage. He was present throughout the feverish attempt to exercise damage control in the Los Angeles rife with rumors, We suggested we speak to Loans, and he too was well acquainted with the inside scoop on Cielo, but we never did manage to arrange an interview. The Polanski-Loans bosom buddyhood, Gutowski recalled, ended bitterly. The two veteran soldiers of the sexual revolution quarreled over the director's ungrateful attitude to regard to Playboy's funding of Polanski's witchy rendition of Macbeth in 1971. In happier days, while in London for dubbing on Rosemary's Baby, Polanski and Tate thanked Loans for the gala wedding reception he hosted at the Playboy Club with the gift of a 22-carat penis statue. Gutowski told us this engorged gift was his idea. He used his sculpting skills to create the member, which was then molded by Sharon Tate's jeweler, Marvin Heim, a Beverly Hills more industry fixture whose jewels were glittered on Oscar night. Hefner's right-hand man proudly exhibited it in a glass cabinet in his notorious 3 Montpellier Square pleasure palace. Gutowski recalled his luxury lingam as the perfect phallic symbol of the Polanski Playboy jet set's Dysonian excess. After bad blood was spilled at their Macbeth dispute, Loans returned with the Pole's phallus with a note to Polanski. I am returning this life-size statue of yourself. No doubt you can find some other friend to shove it up. The infamous prick, summing up the Polanski Playboy fornication frolics, ended up auctioned off by the London drug rehab charity Release, while Polanski, Gutowski, and Loans cut a sway through London's mini-skirted dolly birds under the sign of the Golden Dick. Cielo's previously occupant, Terry Melcher, and his friends Dennis Wilson and Greg Jacobson called their own LA-based pussy posse the Golden Penetrators, as Wilson's battered ex-wife Carol explained when divorcing the compulsively horny drummer. The trio saw themselves as roving cocksmen, competing for which Golden Penetrator could bed the most women. The three cursed in their own on-gold colored pimpmobile for their sex safaris. Theirs was a world made in order for the perpetually horny Charlie Manson, fresh out of prison and eager to make up for lost time with nebile nymphets in tow. His acquaintance, Troy Donahue, assessment that the secret of Charlie's fascination was his dick may seem flippant, but it shouldn't be underestimated in the context of the sexual revolution being waxed at their cultural moment. Manson's statement that many of his famous erotic adventures he encountered in the Beverly Hills party circuit asked him, "Will you do it to me? I hear you do it good, honey, and will you come up to my house later?" is underscored by the copious compilation testimony of his sexual prowess from even former lovers of his who ultimately condemned him, including Diane Lake, Juanita Waldebush, Susan Atkins, and Catherine Chair. In keeping with the ejaculation expectations with the ultimately brought Polanski's Golden Prick Brigade, Melcher's Golden Penetrators, and Charlie's Merry Humpsters together in one big bang bang, Hugh Hefner's loyal confidant and business partner, Bobby Arnstein, revealed just how incestuous this libidinous scene was. According to Arnstein, Hefner already bedded Tate prior to his involvement with Polanski. The publisher was so smitten with the starlet that he not only tried to persuade her to take up Sabrink's suggestion to go en natural in a centerfold, he even entertained hopes of marrying her. The flirtatious chemistry flowing between Tate and Hefner during the actress's June '68 appearance with Polanski on Hefner's Playboy After Dark TV show makes their attraction apparent. Bobby Arnstein, by the way, killed herself during an FBI investigation into the suspected major cocaine ring operation the feds linked to Playboy. Bunnies of a feather flocked together. Playmate of the Year, Connie Kresge's claim that Hefner and Loans were in possession of some of the Tate's sex tapes takes on a more personal cast in context to Hef's Tate's dates. In Playboy Connection, raised in rabbit ears even on the night of the murders on August 8, '69, Polanski was digging in the scene with Hefner and his new girlfriend, Barbie Benton, at a London nightclub, Revolution. Little could they have known that night that one summer earlier, Barbie Benton, before she met Hefner, purchased hairpieces from Charles Watson when he worked at the wig emporium Contessa Creations in Los Angeles. Hefner was one of the first to hear Polanski's initial speculations of what had happened, and his former lover Tate immediately after the director learned of the disaster Fatowsky brought upon his home. Hefner's complicity in concealing the truth about Cielo Drive murders extended to hosting the longtime bosom buddy Vincent Bugliosi during the final edit of Helter Skelter, a book Playboy promoted and even published in its own imprint to help spread the word. Hefner kept a fully furnished office at Bugliosi's disposal for decades thereafter. Since Hefner's relationship with Sharon preceded Polanski's, the publisher's closely companion in lechery, it's hard to believe that in the course of the friendship, still going strong in the 2000s, that Hef and the bug Bugliosi never discussed the sex tapes. Bugliosi denied the existence of them for years. He finally made the small concession to author Tom O'Neill that the police had found one Tate porn film, though we know there were many more. Hefner, by the way, continued filming cocaine-fueled private porno parties with celebrities mingling with call girls on video well into the late 70s. Voyeuristic spectacles called pig nights that routinely screened these private skin flicks in their closest male cronies, including Bill Crosby and Bugliosi. The Polanski porno tapes must have seen as part of a long tradition of such entertainments, standard fare in thrill-hungry Hollywood since the days when flappers on bootleg gin cavorted in them rather than hippie chicks on acid. In 1966, while appearing in Mata Hari's Daughter in the Bond spoof Casino Royale, British actress Joanna Pettit was romantically involved with Victor Lones. Pettit, who later attended an informal lunch at Cielo Drive on the day of her friend Sharon died, was quoted by Tate's biographer Ed Sanders to the effect that Lones and Polanski used to watch porno films together in the Montpellier manner. She said that she and Sharon left the room when their partners enjoyed these explicit erotic productions. Pettit is one of many of Sharon's close friends who admitted knowing that Polanski pressured Tate to perform in privately shown X-rated videos. Pettit asserted that Polanski controlled his wife and other aspects of her life, as well as stating that she ruined her entire life from the time she met him. Pettit herself was later traumatized by her marriage of an even more abusive Alex Cord, an actor who was one of the Jay Sebring's hair clients. Speaking of controlling men and considering what's known now of Polanski's penchant for pubescence, this excerpt from the 1966 interview with Sharon Tate in a French newspaper is unintentionally comedy classic to be filled out in the out of the kettle and into the fire department. Journalist, I'm pretty sure you were engaged to someone the last time I saw you. With Jay Sebring was the answer. Mr. Sebring is 33. He's a Hollywood hairdresser. He gets paid 15 pounds for a haircut. Now it is finished. Now he was trying to dominate me too much. When I was filming a nude scene in The Vampire Killers, he telephoned me and tried to dispute it. However, we stayed friends. I called him the other day to find out how he was doing. He told me now he was going out with a 15-year-old girl. I found that totally immature. I told Jay he should be ashamed. A 15-year-old? When I was 15, I was still looking for red and white striped flannel nightgowns. I was dead scared of men, Jay told me, but she's very much advanced for her age. She knows just about everything. Miss Tate's sighs, thinking of the strangers of life as she emptied her cup of coffee into one shot. I'm dating Roman Polanski now, Sharon said. I have to admit that I never thought that one day I would date someone so intelligent. He is teaching me a lot of things and shares confidences with me. No comment necessary. Like Maine before him, Grotowski described his growing dislike of Lones Polanski's crony Ian Quarrier in the Vampires shoot. He'd worked with him previously in the 1966 film Cul-de-sac. In his only public statement about Quarrier that I've located in an interview about the making of Cul-de-sac, the nominally civil Grotowski derided the actor as a layabout, derogatory British slang for a lazy loafer. Privately, the producer expressed more grave reservations about the mean-spirited Fope, particularly his belief in the murders at Cielo wouldn't have happened without Corrières d'Age's presence in the Roman circus. In the anxious weeks after the killings, when everyone suspected everyone else, Gutowski discovered that Corrières had been one of the several dealers in and out of Cielo Drive on drug business before and after the murders. Gutowski recalled that Corrières was decidedly unwelcome in the suddenly paranoid Polanski circle after Tate's death, for which he was somehow held responsible. His mysterious disappearance shortly thereafter only confirmed Gutowski's suspicions. At the time of our meeting, Corrières' whereabouts were completely unknown since the early 70s. Although many considered Corrières' sudden disappearance indicative of some guilt, Gutowski absolutely noted that nobody was in a great rush to find him. How did Ian Corrières die? Corrières wouldn't surface again for years, and then in a manner drastically underscoring all the universally negative reports of his character, I'd heard that those who knew him, was Corrières a convenient scapegoat for the slayings, a way of shifting blame from Gutowski's recklessness, or did he really bear a measure of responsibility for the murders that so traumatized him? The same thing happened to Dennis Wilson, blacklisted in the wake of the murders by those of his peers who saw his friendship with Manson as the reason their party scene ended up at a crime scene. Why Wilson was scapegoated was obvious. Everyone knew he provided entree to the two Charlies. But exactly had Corrières done so far to fall steeply from the former Groovy's grace, I still don't know. In January of '68, Gutowski served as best man at Polanski's wedding to Tate, helping Loans to organize the much publicized gala celebration held afterwards at the Playboy Club. He told us that he'd introduced Tate to Polanski, and in later interviews with the director's former friends, I heard contradictory claims of how the couple met. Paramount Studios chief Robert Evans, up to his tinted glasses in mob money in a way that the Comptons groups Tenzer and Klinger could only dream of, invited Polanski to Los Angeles to direct Rosemary's Baby. He did this at the behest of his colleague at Paramount, Peter Bart. What have you got to lose? Evan asked Polanski. If you come to LA, the worst thing that can happen is you're going to have the best sex of your life. I'll be there, said Polanski. The film's unintentional igniting of a black magic fad is explained in the Wizard chapter, being integral to the misleading but tenacious occult aspects informing public awareness of the Manson mythos. Gutowski, already familiar with American show business, went Hollywood with Polanski, originally planning on being involved as co-producer. During wide-ranging conversation, Gutowski not only debunked the original narrative of the Cielo Drive murders, but dismissed several myths and urban legends about the film cited in many earlier books, The Satanic Scream. Despite the fact that he was dredging up potentially painful memories of the brutal murders of his close friends Sharon Tate and Gutowski showed no sign of melancholy during his discussions. Perhaps immune to violent death or after the killing he'd seen during World War II, he was oddly gleeful and lighthearted as he casually related to what he recalled about the secrets of the cover-up at the Cielo crimes he collaborated in concocting. He amused air suggested that he found it rather humorous that the masses accepted such a ludicrous cover story, as was generally believed that he and his co-conspirators considered it to be so obvious that the real situation was. To he and his friends' panicky dismay, he said, competent journalists immediately dug deep into the well-known drug dealing of Gutowski, the very thing they wished to conceal. Like many of Polanski's circle who later agreed to speak to me, Gutowski never even acknowledged the helter-skelter scenario. He knew without a doubt that it wasn't the motive. In no way did Gutowski indicate that he considered it unethical to have contributed to the misdirection campaign that hid the truth about the Tate murders. On the contrary, he acted as if it was a natural, aristocratic right of the rich and famous to lie to the public when necessary, even when describing the organized crime elements supervising the silence of Cielo's secrets. Gutowski seemed to consider this just another noddingly roguish way the dog-eat-dog racket of show business operates. The Hollywood elite always consider themselves above the law. Only more peasants are allowed to follow. Secrecy and protecting your own is the coin of the realm of Tinseltown. And Gutowski's cheerful cynicism about this double standard was exceptional. Gutowski told us that he was actually a co-signatory on the lease for the Cielo Drive property, since he and Polanski planned to use it in place as an office for future film productions. In this capacity, he was forced to negotiate on behalf of Polanski when Rudy Altabelli, the most unpleasant fellow, vindictively sued the director for damages incurred by the murders. Shaken by the horrors of the Cielo slayings, Gutowski recalled returning to European filmmaking by producing the unsuccessful Romance of the Horse Thief, 1971, a French-Italian Yugoslav adventure film directed not by Polanski but Polanski, namely the blacklisted director Abraham Polanski. During the production, Gutowski reunited with the film star Yul Brynner, an enthusiastic celebrant of the drug party scene that brought the buck knives to Benedict Canyon. Gutowski said that the flamboyant actor was one of the most exhibitionist celebrity performers in the bisexual video antics circulated in the jaded Hefner Loans Playboy inner circle. He told us that the hard-partying Brenner, a heavy drinker and chain smoker, was one of Sebring's steadiest cocaine clients ever since the production of The Magnificent Seven several years earlier. My friend and film director Curtis Harrington, a close companion of the actor Hurd Hatfield, one of Brenner's former lovers, confirmed to me the knowledge of Brenner's exhibitionist appearance in the much whispered about porno videos was common knowledge among the necessary secretive gay underworld of the 60s Hollywood. Gutowski also recalled Sebring's turning Brenner's close friend and supposed lover, Peter Sellers, onto hashish and cocaine. Gutowski mentioned in passing that in his own personal knowledge, Sellers himself even resorted to smuggling hashish from Italy to England at one point. Sellers was one of Polanski's inner circle who put up the reward money to whoever found the killers. Peter was terrified, Gutowski remembered. He knew that what happened to Wojciech could happen to him. It woke us all up from a dream, and that was no trusting again. Gutowski's man of the world, existential amorality about the murders and the covert drug dealing behind the slyly hinted at the certain sneaking admiration for criminality. This was reinforced by the stories he regaled us with about another close friend, even more infamous than Polanski. While not directly related to the revelations about the cover-up of the Cielo Drive crime, knowledge of this chapter of Gutowski's life illuminates why willingness to cooperate with the mob-directed conspiracy to conceal the skeletons in Cielo Drive closet came so easily to him. That is the end of that chapter. The next chapter is called Polanski to Khashoggi, which, was the Arab guy. That's how intense this is getting. So we play for all the friends and family, all our friends and enemies, and God bless Nic Schreck for his excellent work. And God bless Tom O'Neill, and we pray for all the children. Have a